Welcome back to another edition of our Big 12 Power Rankings, officially Week 7. I'm Anthony Totri, joined for the first time on the Big 12 Power Rankings by the one, the only Damon Dog himself. Love having Damon on, especially at this time of the year when we're talking Big 12 Power Rankings. There's just a lot going on from the top to the bottom. So without further ado, Damon, I want to see your rankings first. What do you have cooking this week?
Well, first off, I just have to say you brought me in here, I think, for very specific reasons today, and that's because things have never been worse in Tucson. It makes sense that's why I'm on here today. Of course, no changes because I wasn't on last week, but we're going to start off with Iowa State at number 1. I believe they're the clear top team in the conference at this moment, ninth ranked team in the country. I like Kansas State better than I like BYU right now. I watched that BYU game in entirety this weekend. They look very beatable to me. Kansas State, meanwhile, they dog walked Arizona earlier this season. I think, Kansas State obviously had a little bit of a rough outing a couple weeks ago, but in general, I think they are a very good football team. Texas Tech, hard to argue with that record. Same with BYU. ASU keeps just moving on up on these rankings.
Just climbing.
I'm a little bit higher, I believe, on Colorado than you are. They've played some close games, and they lost a close game to a Kansas State team that, like I said, I believe is a pretty solid football team. Only losing by 3 points to them is not a bad loss whatsoever, in my opinion. Obviously, Nebraska, they didn't look great. Close game against Baylor, but I think Colorado is one of the better teams in the conference. West Virginia is similar. West Virginia is
they're sneaky.
They are. They're a team that has lost some close games. They lost to Iowa State by 12 points. Not horrendous. They beat the holy hell out of Oklahoma State. Lost to Pitt barely, who's ranked. So I think West Virginia is a pretty solid team. Cincinnati, I'm going to go ahead and say it, still not a believer.
Okay.
I think going into the season, they were projected to be one of the worst teams. Not a huge believer in them. U of A, got to have them in front of Utah, I think, right now. The way Utah looked last week against ASU, they looked awful. They looked awful against U of A last week. I just don't see a world in which you can put Utah in front of Arizona. I don't care about Cam Rising. I mean, I think Cam Rising's done at this point after what I saw last week.
Created a LinkedIn profile, apparently.
Did he actually?
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
Good for him.
And then I got, rounding out this group here, we got UCF, Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU, Houston, and then Kansas in last place at 1 and 5. I think Houston's pretty bad. I know they beat TCU, but I'm still going to go with TCU as a better team. I think Houston finishes the year out worse than them. Baylor, another team they're 0-3 in conference, but they've played some semi-close games against some of these teams I have towards the top here in these power rankings. So that's where I'm going with my 16.
Which of these teams in your rankings do you feel like has the biggest opportunity to climb this week?
I mean, hypothetically, if Arizona wins this game, I think you got to kind of give them somewhat of a shot to not to win the conference, but to be one of the more competitive teams in the conference, because I think Colorado's a good team. I think what you've seen from Arizona thus far is pretty hot and cold.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. If you guys play Cincinnati, I don't know if I'd rise you that much, but it would be another just win on the resume for ASU and Kenny Dillingham that would be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that Arizona-Colorado game is definitely going to be one of the more fun ones this weekend in the Big 12. But let's go ahead. Let's get to my Big 12 power rankings this week. The top stays the same. I got Iowa State. Love Rocco Beck. Love what they're doing over in Ames, Iowa. So Iowa State stays at 1. BYU 6-0 on the season. Everybody saw that coming 100%. They're sitting at 2-0 right now. Absolutely love what they're doing. Kansas State at 3, a team that I don't know how I feel about the Wildcats right now. I don't think you can really deny them that third spot, but I really, really am interested to see how they play out the rest of the season. Tech rises. A lot of these teams rising in the Big 12 power rankings due to some of the higher teams falling. I'm again, another team in Texas Tech that I don't really know what to make of right now. Their best win so far this season has been Arizona State. But this is a team that beat Cincinnati by, I think, 3 points, gave up 40-something points, so that defense still concerns me. Arizona State jumps up 2 spots. They are now number 5 in my Big 12 power rankings. Skattebo, 5th nationally in rush yards, 2nd in the Big 12. Gotta love what he's doing. Gotta love what Kenny Dillingham's doing. And kind of like you said, Damon, this team is just a win away from being 6-1 on the season, reaching bowl eligibility. At number 6, I have Cincinnati, a team that I think can really prove themselves this week if they're able to take care of business at home. Tough challenge against Arizona State. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati, one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. They are going to certainly have their hands full with Cam Skattebo and company. Colorado at 7, still not totally sold. I think I'm going to learn a lot about the Buffs this weekend when they take on Arizona. Really interested to see that matchup, especially in Tucson. Utah at 8, they fall 4 spots. Cam Rising, it's a good thing you created that LinkedIn profile. I don't want to see you in year 8, dude. I turned 27, and you've been in college football since I was in college. So get it together. West Virginia at number 9. Oklahoma State at 10. One of the bigger disappointments this season in the conference. Ollie Gordon obviously has been dealing with some injuries this season. Alan Bowman looks like the second mate to Cam Rising's pirate ship at this point in the season. Arizona at 11, they continue to fall. A tough performance against BYU. I know there are a lot of people calling for Brent Brennan's job. I would just like to say, don't worry, the 7-5 Brent Brennan special is still up for contention.
It is alive.
It is alive and well. UCF at 12, Baylor at 13. Baylor, another interesting team in this conference that Dave Aranda, I think he needs to continue to try and find ways to win some games here. Otherwise, his job is certainly going to be pulled out from underneath him. And the close things out, Houston at 14, TCU at 15, and the Jayhawks stay at the bottom of this conference at 16, Damon.
Who do you think is the most disappointing team? Because I think it's really a 3-horse race right now between Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Kansas.
I would say Kansas, just because these are our Week 7 power rankings, and Kansas still hasn't beaten an FBS opponent. And this was a team that was ranked in the AP top 25 to start the season. They've got, a lot of really talented players, but they just haven't been able to win football games down the stretch in the fourth quarter. But it is what it is. Who would you say out of those 3?
It feels very personal for me on the one front. So, I think that makes it feel like it's been more of a disappointment, but I would have to say that it probably is Kansas. And just, they had a Heisman contender as their quarterback. They're 1-5 right now. They look just absolutely lost out there. And to answer your earlier question, actually, now that I'm looking at this slate, I think West Virginia has the opportunity, especially on your power rankings, to rise the most, because they do have a pretty okay record. They're 3-3. Like I said, they lost to Iowa State, they lost to Pitt, they lost to Penn State. Those are 3 ranked opponents right now. 3 really good football teams, really. And they play another ranked opponent in Kansas State this week. If they go to 4-3 with all 3 of their losses being to a ranked team, I think you got to treat West Virginia like a pretty solid football team.
I think that's 100% fair. Guys, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you are subscribed to PHNX Sports. And also head to the comments. Let us know who you think the biggest disappointment is thus far in the Big 12 season. And of course, we will see you guys next week for another edition of our Big 12 Power Rankings.
We all silly like the mayor.